Good afternoon and happy Friday, you guys. I'm so glad to be here and I'm so glad that you are too. So I'm Sarah and I help people get liberated. I help people live liberated. And I had this amazing awareness this morning, part of my liberation and new way of living, and I wanted to share it with you. So I woke up this morning early, headed to my physical therapist, first thing, 8 o'clock, and then I had my annual physical right after that. And I just had this moment of awareness, right, that I call it, it's really tapping into one's intuition, right, the inner self, the divine within us, where we're really able to be in touch with who we are moment. And I was like, man, I feel really good in my body. And I just sort of sat with that thought, like, yeah, right? And I went inside and I scanned over my body and I'm like, I feel really good. And it triggered into several other thoughts for me where I was like, wow, there was a time when I was going to the doctor all the time. It felt like all the time. Obviously, it wasn't literally all the time, but it was a lot of time. And even this current primary care doctor, I have been in to see him over the last 2 years. Initially, certainly for the COVID times, when I had COVID, very early on, and then one more time. And maybe one other time besides that, I can't remember, it doesn't really matter. The idea here is I had been in to see him with a problem of my body just not feeling right? And so as the person that I grew up to be, I was very sensitive. I was highly sensitive emotionally, and just really energetically sensitive. I was very hyper aware of everything going on in my surroundings for various reasons. How that evolves, I believe, in people, certain circumstances that you grow up in. And so as a very aware person, I'm also not only hypersensitive to what's going on around me, right? But I'm also super sensitive to what is going on inside of me. So I feel all the little things that what multiple practitioners have said to me, the average person doesn't feel that. So if you're a highly sensitive person, you probably know exactly what I mean. And if you're listening to me, you probably are a fairly sensitive person. And when I say sensitive, it has a negative connotation for some people. I just mean aware, highly aware of what's going on outside of you and inside of you. Some people are one or the other. I'm both. We have all different kinds of terms for that, right? Empath, highly sensitive. There's a bunch of different terms that people use to describe that. So whatever resonates for you. It's a sensitivity. So really aware of my own body. And I've been in to talk with him multiple times about, something in me just doesn't quite feel right. So for the last few years, I've had something going on with my shoulder, which is a legitimate thing, right? And here's one of the pieces I want to get to in sharing with you today is how sensitive the body is to stress. Now, let me just say right off the bat, in my years of going to the doctor to see what was wrong with me, I would repeatedly get this experience. I go into the doctor takes a look at me, scans me, which I think is interesting in of itself, but scans me, and then says, you look fine, more or less, right? And I'm like, I may look healthy, but there is something going on inside of me and it doesn't feel right. It's not right. It doesn't feel good. And it is taking away from my experience of living, of feeling alive and feeling really good being alive. So I used to hate hearing them say, there's nothing wrong with you, right? Because that's not an answer. It's not a solution to the problem I'm coming in with. And even more so, I hated when they said, well, it's only stress. Like, you need to change your lifestyle. You need to have less stress, because chances are what's actually happening to you is the effects of stress. And at that time, I would hear that and be like, listen, there is something wrong, and stress is a normal state of being. Most people are generally stressed most of the time, whether or not they know it or not, right? Like most people live in a similar state that I am in. So, and I didn't believe that it was possible to not live in a constant state of stress, anxiety, tension. And so when they're not telling me, oh, well, it's stress, i.e., can't you handle your life? Why aren't you handling it better? And you need to change it. And I'm like, I have no idea how to change my lifestyle such that I don't feel any stress. That seems completely impossible. So in my reflections this morning, I was like, man, I have radically changed my lifestyle and my thoughts, my beliefs about what it is to live really good, right? I have changed the way that I see the world, the way that I think about what's going on in the world, the way that I engage with various aspects of the world. Like I barely watch any news, for instance, right? I mean, it's just a very small example of how I've shifted things to where I just live differently. So as I was reflecting on it this morning, I was like, wow, this is like radical. And now I understand what the doctor meant when they would say, you need to change your lifestyle. It's stress, right? Even at the dentist, I mean, I'm a very preventative person, always have been a big believer of prevention. So I would regularly go for my annual exam. I would regularly go to the physical yearly exam. I would regularly go to the dermatologist, the dentist. I mean, all the things that you're like supposed to do, I generally did do and still feel like those are all very beneficial. I encourage you to do them. And in my time at the dentist, I became aware that the amount of tightness that I had in my jaw, down and in through my neck, was actually not normal. Well, let me rephrase. It actually is very normal, and it's so normal that most people have it and have no idea that they have it because it's the normal. But what I came to learn in conversation with my dentist, I make friends with all my practitioners, by the way. I make friends everywhere. So in conversation with his practitioner, the dentist, we became aware like, oh, actually the level of tightness and intensity in my neck and in my jaw is not meant to be there. And that's what I mean when I say it's like not normal. It's not intended. My jaw is not intended to have a mass amount of stress, right? It's not supposed to have this low level like hurt and pain in it, nor is my neck. So just the awareness of the level that most people live in of stress and anxiety and uncertainty and fear and not enoughness and scarcity, which literally does change your body chemistry. It changes the way in which you hold up your shoulders, your back, your neck, your head. And when we feel this heightened sense of stress, which most people on the planet over the last couple of years have felt a heightened level of stress, and when we don't have really, really, really good ways of managing it and reconstructing it and transmuting it, we internalize it. That's just like how it happens. It's not something really that's, in my mind, debatable. It just literally is how it happens. You take in stress, you take in thoughts, you take in beliefs, you take in the news, you take in shares from your friends. That all has energy of stress, energy of anxiety, comes into your body and it affects your physical body, right? So over time, I was working in an environment that had a huge amount of stress, and I wasn't paying attention to my body. And that was the other huge, huge, huge awareness I had this morning, is that growing up, the way that I understood my responsibility to my body was sort of this general thing I feel like that I learned growing up in church, which was like that the body is just a vessel, that the body is like not to be given a lot of attention, right? That the body is very secondary. And just in general, the way that I understood things was like our focus should always be on God, right? Outside of me, like this relationship, and on other people and being of service, being of use to other people. And so just happened that I just didn't pay as much attention to my body. Nobody like intentionally taught me, don't pay attention to your body. It was just like this assumption that your body just managed sort of on its own to an extent, and that you needed to do like more or less the right things, but didn't need to pay too much attention to it because there was just other things that you need to pay attention to, right? On top of doing good in school and all of the things of like healthy functioning. So this morning, having that awareness of like, man, what has changed in the last like 3 to 5 years where I have gotten to this point now where I don't have any more, like, I definitely don't live in a state of stress or anxiety. That is for sure. I have occasional stress and occasional anxiety, and it's very noticeable now. My general state of being is at rest. It's not at rest like traditional thought of rest, right? Because I'm a super energetic, optimistic, excited person. So it's a state of rest, which is a state of being minus anxiety and constant stress feelings. So it's like the body is no longer all the time, right? The body is like, woo, I could just get up and start dancing most times during a typical day because I feel that loose, right? It doesn't take a few drinks anymore for me to feel relaxed and at ease. And that's the awareness I had this morning. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to go to the doctor for this physical, to have that awareness of like, wow, literally, I've been to so many doctors with the intention of solving a problem, right? And so much of that has come from this one shift, which is, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm healthy. I'm not broken. I'm whole, right? So instead of thinking I'm broken and there's something wrong with me that needs to be fixed, I now, some years ago, shifted to I am whole and there is nothing wrong with me. I'm meant to be healthy, and that is meant to be my state of being. I now need to work, put in the time and the effort to getting myself back to that state of being. Good, relaxed health. Enjoyable, fulfilled, desiring state of being. I know a video I was watching once of Tony Robbins, he refers to it as the beautiful state, a beautiful state of mind, right? Which is what I truly do believe we are meant to be living in. And, most religions believe we're meant to be living in a state, a beautiful state, a state where we're really, truly enjoying life. And yet most people don't. So making the decision to actually radically change your lifestyle such that you're living in that beautiful state. I call it a liberated state where you feel generally at rest and you feel generally at ease in your body and you're not in a constant state of anxiety. Really precious, I'll just share quickly, a client of mine that I'm working with this week had the awareness that as she has been doing this work with me, that she is now able to distinguish between feeling at rest and in anxiety. And she was able to have this greater awareness of like, wow, I was in a complete state of anxiety. Most of my life, my daily, day-to-day life was in an anxiety state. Thus, I didn't know that was what it was like to have anxiety all the time, right? Because just being in that state was like normal. Versus now that she's been doing this work to unwind a lot of her beliefs that she's held on to about how to live life, and she's rewiring and creating new beliefs of how to live life, with the goal being to be healthy and to live in a state of rest, to live in a state of honoring not only the experience of living not only our feelings, not only like attending to our purpose, which are all 100% my vibe, but also to attend to the body and allowing the body to be attended to such that it aids in the whole picture of being at rest. So it's such a beautiful awareness for her to actually see, like, wow, I don't have constant anxiety anymore. And I really noticed and I recognized I was in that state of anxiety. So for you, wherever you're at, if you're in that state of anxiety, it's a radical mindset shift and a leap of faith to believe that there is something better for you, that there is a better way to live. In my opinion, it's a better way to live, to be liberated and at rest. One. And then two, if you're at a place where you're like, man, actually life feels pretty good, right? Which I get also my clients who are like, we're started out in a place of like, I just was referring to it the other day with a client in a hole, right? Like life is really not good, which is where I was a few years ago. And so you work your way out of that hole and then you start like feeling pretty good, right? There's still quite a bit of work to be done of rewiring the mind so that it doesn't fall back into old thinking, because that old thinking has been there for so long, and there's so many nuances of how to live a much better life. And we just are complex human beings, right? We're just complex entities. So really paying attention to all the different areas of your life is a critical part of living liberated, and then having a way of maintaining that such that you don't fall back into the old habits. Because any habits, if you're over 40, which I am 45, are very deeply embedded in not only the mind, but also in the body. So I want to leave this with you. How to make that shift, right? Obviously, I think the best thing is to start doing this work with me. And there's lots of coaches out there. So if you don't resonate with me specifically, of course, another coach, but you wouldn't be here if you didn't. So doing the work with me where we dive in and get an understanding of how you're actually living right now, right? And that's really the process of awareness, becoming aware of the level of anxiety or stress or frustration or determination that isn't coming from an honoring place that's in you, or a level of ambition that's coming from you, or drive, that are all actually being motivated by not good enough, right? Not being good enough, and so you're driven to do better, versus honoring and loving your life and loving your purpose here on the planet. And then those things kick you into high gear and make you an even more amazing human. So either place, wherever you're at, it really is about practicing prioritizing yourself, and including prioritizing the body, prioritizing how you take care of yourself. I go to multiple practitioners now on a regular basis who attend to the body in such a way that it takes care of any energy, any stress, any tension that has gotten in there, and helping me to remove it. They're part of my team of experts that helps me to remove anything that gets in there that is not wanted and or is not going to serve me and my body best. So seeking your fulfillment, seeking your purpose, and seeking your desires. As crazy as that might sound to some of you that aren't familiar with that or who are not yet invested in that belief, that is the key, is making that shift. And if you're not invested in that idea, for most people, that is a radical mindset shift that has to transpire in order to allow it to happen. And it definitely did for me. I mean, I needed a full transformation in the way that I was seeing the purpose of life in order to finally get here where I can truly say I'm invested in going after what I desire. So I will leave that with you as the primary shifter, is shifting from for you to shift from anxiety and stress over to a place of rest and honor in who you are and what your life has to offer you, it is being able to do that mindset shift to desire and fulfillment and purpose, literally as the strategy for enjoying life. Okay, you guys, if you have any questions, happy to answer, and let me know what this video brings up for you. And for those of you who are like, yes, I want everything that life has to offer me, the most love, the most enjoyment, the most sense of meaning and purpose, and you recognize you're not able to figure out how to do it alone, and or you're like me and you're like, I just don't want to do it alone. I'm sure I could struggle to figure it out and talk to this person and talk to that person and read all of these books, and you're already doing that most likely if you're anything like me, and you're like, this just is going way too slow, and you want like the best that life has to offer you right now, reach out to me and we'll set up a time to chat about it and get really clear with what it is you want in your life. And I will talk to you about the process of actually making that happen. All right, you guys, as always, between now and when I see you next, go do that thing you most want to be doing. And I'll talk to you soon.